do you think you hold brief that it is the parents that should be held responsible? How do you mean?
Thank you for having me. It's important for us to note that bullying starts from the home. The family is the breeding ground of children. That is where they are supposed to learn and grow and are nurtured. The family releases children into society. It is how you've worked with that child, how you have nurtured that child, trained that child, the values that you've instilled into that child, that the child will take into society. Now, the child can go into society and they will encounter all sorts. They might be in an environment like a school that might be conducive for bullying, but there are children that actually go into schools and don't become bullies because they have strong moral values, they have strong personal values, they have good communication skills with their parents, they are emotionally intelligent, and they have a relationship with their parents. So it's very important for us to know that the home is the breeding ground. Think about Hitler, for example. Hitler was doing very, very well. We all know about him and how many millions of people he killed around the world. He was doing just fine until all sorts of changes happened in his family. He became more aware as a teen. He experienced a lot of childhood trauma. He lost members of his family. He was a victim of serious abuse, physical abuse, which is also bullying. He was traumatized as a child. And then guess what? Millions of people were taken away just because of one child that was bullied. Bullying starts in the home.
Ronke has said it all.
No, she hasn't. Bullying starts in the school. Number one, in Nigerian schools, they're spanking kids. I don't like that. Even though in Lagos State, I'm hearing that you're not supposed to spank. We left Canada in August of 2012. In September, we arrived, and my son, who's 21 now, was 11. And when he went to that school, what we had was a spanking. He came home, he was sad, he was upset because he's not used to that. Abroad, you cannot spank a child. So coming from that into this, I had to go to the school and talk to the principal, the teacher, and I had to tell them how they have to discipline my child. I mean, other kids were still getting spanked, but my child couldn't take it because it was psychological. A lot of bullying goes on in the school that we don't pay attention to. Look at me, at 57 years old, I'm 6'2". I was 6 feet tall at 13. And all the tall girls at St. Teresa's, my school, were bullied. They would call us names like giraffe. Teachers were calling us giraffe. They will actually abuse us with names of animals, long necks, things like, you'll think the students are the ones, but teachers are doing that. And it's unacceptable. Now, bullying might be hidden. It's not always, yeah, we're gonna fight you, you're gonna fight me. There's bullying hidden in girls' schools all over Nigeria. Some girls' schools will not let you do your hair. We have to cut our hair to afros, short hair. That's bullying. Girls have hair. Let them plait it. Let them do it. But no, these schools don't want us to look nice, so they want us to cut our hair. That is bullying in school by teachers. So we don't look at these things the way it is. Okay, we're always complaining this, that. She's talking about parents. I'm talking about teachers. What about the community? There's bullying in the community. I have one exercise book from 1975, and I still have it. It's at home. I brought it to Lagos. I'll show you when I come next. That exercise book, it says Kemi, Olunloyo. At the back of the exercise book, when I found it, I saw a list of names of people I'm going to beat after school. I mean, really.
Okay.
People that call me giraffe. When they heard the teacher calling me giraffe, people that call me all those, you know, all those names, Dongoyaro, all that. I was like, when I saw the list of names, all these girls are now like 57. I even contacted some of them. I said, hey, see your name at the back. So, you know, when people see teachers spanking, like the Kwara State Islamic School, that was out of control. They thought these kids went to drink alcohol, but they didn't. They were only drinking juice.
Let me come in here. Mm-hmm. You're a parent, you took your child to a school.
Sure.
And you knew that in this school, they're not allowed to leave their hair. And you call that bullying? It
is bullying. I went to a school where...
Shouldn't they have their rules?
Well, school rules are there, and we understand. This is 2021. Exactly why are our girls still going to school with afros? Give me one reason. It's bullying. Let the girls be girls. I'm an advocate for FGM, female genital mutilation. Let the girls be girls. Don't circumcise girls. Don't cut their hair in school. Let them be girls.
Okay. Okay. I'm sure you're going to disagree with that.
Totally.
Okay, let me hear you out.
Okay, let them be girls. I do agree that they should be girls. I have a daughter, a precious daughter. And I will not take her to a school where they cut hair because I want her to be a girl. As a matter of fact, I refuse her to go to a very prestigious school because their uniform was ugly. It sounds cosmetic, but I didn't want that. That is the choice of the parent to make. I, as the parent, did not put my child in an environment where I believe it is toxic for my child or unconducive for her beauty.
But do you
Yes.
have, do parents really have a choice in schools children go to?
You do have a choice. Not all schools cut hair. Where she is now, they do not cut hair. Where she is now, their uniform is acceptable. And it was a choice that I made. When you put your child in a school where they hit children, then yours will get hit. Just like if you put your child in a school and in an Islamic school, your child will pray and do whatever it is. If you put them in a missionary school, your child is going to do exactly what is expected of them to do in that school. So we cannot make a choice and then we protest against it. As a matter of fact, she said she brought her son from the United Kingdom. I brought my daughter from the United States. I brought my daughter from the United Kingdom as well. And I made certain choices. The school that I wanted her to be with, what sort of parents are there? What is the disciplinary procedure? She was very, very British. She was using a British accent. She was very somewhat cocky. But I wanted her to be in a traditional school because I wanted her to dobale and greet people. I wanted all that. So I chose the school. You must be strategic and intentional about the kind of school and environment. And you must also realize that it is not only the school that you will release your child to. You can release your child to church and find bullying there. You can release your child to the hairdresser and find bullying there. You can release your child at a sleepover, at a birthday party, and all sorts of environment. You will find bullies there. But where were those people created? Those teachers that bully children in the schools, are they not from homes? Those parents that bully teachers, some parents come and beat teachers in school. They are from homes. They are the ones that are training this sort of children. The permissive parents, the authoritarian parents, they are the ones that are creating these monsters. Bullying starts from home. Thank you.
Now, Ronke just talked about selecting the kind of schools. But do parents really have this privilege? No, you might be the privileged type, she might be the privileged type. But do you really think that parents have this opportunity to select the kind of school that children will go to?
No, they don't. And the reason I'm saying that is because I went to public school, St. Teresa's. Shout out to STC. But anyway, let's just go by this. A parent out there, the mother is selling groundnuts outside the studios. The father is a welder or doing a vulcanizer down the road. They don't have a choice. They have to put their children in public school. Public school is the home of bullying. The poorer children go there. The richer ones go to the private schools. There's the private school, there's the ultra private school, and the super private schools. The 1 million naira a term school. So, regardless of how much you're paying, the bullying is still there.
Let's take a look at it this way. I don't know how fed up you are with the extent to which we've gone with bullying in our schools. I don't know if you're comfortable.
I'm not comfortable. Yeah.
The situation where you find parents go into school to try to reset schools, will you accept that?
Today's schools are different. The average kid in today's society is going to boarding school. So there's a new level of bullying in boarding schools where you're not...
boarding school is not wrong in itself.
No, it's not wrong in itself,
Okay.
but you have the public schools, the private schools, the ultra private, and the super private. Now you see the super private and the ultra private schools, the tuitions are big money, 1 million a term, all that stuff, big money. Many of those schools are not day schools. Many of those schools are schools that students actually live there in the boarding school. So there's a different level of bullying in boarding school. When I was at St. Teresa's, we went to school during the day. At 2 o'clock, school was over, and went to eat lunch and went to the dormitory to sleep, siesta. And we got up at 4 and went up to study. The bully that already messed with you in the classroom can continue in the boarding school. And this is happening today in schools all over Nigeria, boarding schools.
There are exceptions to the rule.
Okay.
As in...
Let's hear your exception.
Not every school has bullying to that extent. Bullying exists everywhere in different categories. There could be verbal bullying. All sorts of bullying happens everywhere. But when you say every school, I don't want to use a blanket statement for every school. My daughter belongs to a school that has a boarding school, and they do not have that sort of, I'm not saying they don't bully, but they don't have that vicious kind of bullying. So just like you mentioned, different kinds of schools, there are different levels of bullying.
Well,
so you can have a child calling another one coconut head, and then you can have another one sexually abusing a child.
Yeah.
That is not happening everywhere. There are still some schools that have pastoral care that is functional.
Okay, can I just say this? There are some schools too that we know they have house masters and house mistresses.
Absolutely.
And some of the schools we've seen today, house masters are not even there.
Yeah.
A lot of these house masters and house mistresses, they're in the building, but they're not even with the children. They're doing their own thing. I've heard of schools in Lagos where house masters were watching Big Brother.
No denying.
And the kids were doing their own thing. And that results in activities that the school doesn't even know about. Gangs, cultism, and all these stuff. There is cultism in secondary schools, where children actually go to school in the morning, day schools. There's cultism in primary schools.
Are you sure they're cultisms? Are you sure they're cults, rather, or they're fraternities?
Fraternities, cults.
I mean,
groups,
you know,
gangs.
when with a cult in primary school, that when you research what a cult is, there's a procedure, there's a routine, there's things that they do.
Right.
Do they really exist in primary schools? Maybe fraternities,
saying
maybe
that
rich
a
kid
lot.
clubs
They're
happen.
they're
But to say
saying
that they're
that.
cults in primary schools, I would have to see the data to
They're
back it up.
they're seeing cultism in primary schools as early as 10 years old now.
I do know that there is antisocial behavior in many, many primary schools. I agree. However, when you say cultism, we would have to see the data to back it up.
One thing about the word cultism, I don't know how you guys really see it in Nigeria. Maybe because I'm coming from North America. What you guys call cultism here is what we call gangs over there. Chicago is one city where we know the average child shot and killed every day is 14. You get there, the child is already dead, they cover it with white cloth.
A 14-year-old is not in primary school typically.
So that's a 14-year-old is
In secondary school.
in secondary school. They are as young as
It's senior.
11
It's
to-
senior, as a matter
yeah.
of fact, yeah.
They're as young as 11 to 14 over there. However, we don't use the word fraternity for the young ones. We use it for the
Let me
university
come in
ones.
here. Let me come in here. Let's go on a break now. When we come back, I want us to move into another issue. Do we even need to have fraternity or cult in our primary or secondary schools?
Okay.
Is this the way? Seeing through both of you arguing the issue about cultism and fraternity. But the question is, as a parent, do you really need to wait to the point where your child comes back to you in the primary school or in the secondary school and tells you, I belong to a fraternity? And how do we differentiate fraternity from cult group in this part of the world?
So as a parent, you don't need to wait for your child to tell you that he or she is in a fraternity or a cult or whatever. They probably won't even communicate that sort
They
of
won't tell you.
information to you if you have strong
So is
moral
it
values.
negative?
What do you mean by
Fraternity culture, is it negative?
It depends on what it is. Like, you know, these are semantics. These are just words that are used loosely, and people have different interpretations for what they are. But whatever it is, human beings have a need to belong. We have a need to belong to social classes. We have a need to belong, to have friends. So when your child goes to school, they will gravitate towards people that they feel are similar to them, that are like to them. So the parent's responsibility, when your child steps into a new school, you actually want to know, how was your first day? Who is your friend? Tell me about your friend. That is how you begin to know. Then you get to know the person's parents. Then you get to know, that's why they have all these play dates and things like that. You begin to know the background, the kind of words that the child uses. If you actually agree, you subscribe to it or not. But guess what? The parents are busy. They are in the office. They leave the children with the house helps and they just leave them to themselves. They do whatever it is. So they gravitate into all these groups, all these fraternities. They do all sorts. And the thing is, there are levels. They keep on moving and moving and moving because if they're getting away with something small, small today, they will increase it, just like any human being. If you get away with A today, it will be B, X, Y, Z. So they will now become cult members eventually, where they're actually now having rituals or going to, I don't know what I can say on air, doing all those evil practices.
No, okay. I was just going to say, if I'm a parent and I have the means and I'm busy, I work, shouldn't the school be there to help reform my children? And I'm paying their bills.
The fact that you say your child needs reformation, the school is not a reformation center. The school is just there to educate your child. Any other thing is a bonus.
So you actually coming for money.
So you as a parent will make sure that your child does not need reformation. With you and your money, you're not the only one that has the money. There are parents that have money. I've got a little bit of money, but I don't have a child that needs reformation. I have a child that is upright, a good citizen of society. So she goes into a school to add value, to make a change. Currently, she's the deputy head girl of the school where she belongs because she has strong values from home. She's a leader. She goes in there to make a difference. She doesn't go to school to be reformed. Bullying starts from home.
I know you will agree that it starts from the home, but definitely you expect that the school should be able to change everything. And now, these days, they are not doing that.
I want to talk about this whole word fraternity versus cultism
Okay.
and gangs. Abroad, the gangs were the ones on the streets. They didn't go to school, they sold drugs, they had guns. The fraternities were in the universities. Your child went from high school to a university. And this is very important to everybody to listen to. You can Google it. Hazing deaths in fraternities. There's a database in the United States Department of Education. You can Google it. From 2000 to 2021, hazing deaths in fraternities. When I was in pharmacy school, they had all these houses inside the compound of the school. They are houses that actually sit. And in those houses, all the guys were there. And then they had this sign, Alpha Pi Sigma Fraternity. They lived in there. They initiated new frats. They call them new frats. And they're usually those young ones that just come out of high school and they're new first year in the university. They're told to drink alcohol, maybe 10 bottles, and then there's alcohol poison. You're going to see a lot of people arrested, students arrested because of alcohol poisoning and stuff. This is what the frats do. And the girls too have, some of my female classmates, they have the female fraternities. They call them sororities. Now, in Nigeria, okay, I'm from Ibadan and I lived in Ibadan when I came back until 2 years ago when I moved to Lagos again. But when I was in Ibadan, I go to UI a lot. At the gate, they have a sign there, say no to cultism, everything cultism all over the compound. So when I found out what's going on in UI, they had what they call confraternities, like black acts, co-fraternities, and things like that. If you remember the 1999 massacre at Obafemi Awolowo, it was featured in BBC's documentary recently. This is what happens when people want to belong, okay? And people who educated these children did not do enough.
The parents,
Their
right?
self-esteem.
The parents.
She just asked you that question. Is it the parents?
The parents didn't do the good job. Thank you for supporting the motion.
The teachers in the secondary schools didn't do a good job to migrate those students to the universities where they now join the real cultism, fraternities,
now, just
and
before
stuff.
you proceed with that, the teachers didn't do a good job before they migrated into
when
higher
it comes to
institutions.
self-esteem
Now,
issues.
do we really need to accommodate the fraternity in our secondary school? You can talk of migration, but we need to have it.
Fraternities don't need to be in secondary school. Fraternities are generally in universities, but what I'm saying is this. Why can't our teachers, okay, final year students, you're here, as they're going out of their final year of secondary school, why can't schools do one last lecture? Kids, young people, you're now going to university, I'm happy for you. Remember, do not join groups. Do not join fraternity. Do not join.
One lecture will not cause 6 years of damage. You don't do one lecture with children before they leave. You start when they join the school. I
Well,
have
I'm saying
children
a
that just left
reminder.
LaPoche school recently. I'm having a hangout with them. They're in year 7. They are in other schools now. I'm getting them together. I'm having a conversation. We will do hangouts with them. You don't start the job when they're about to leave. The job
That's
starts.
a reminder.
A reminder.
A
You don't
last
need them.
reminder
It should
before
be a
they actually pass
lifestyle.
out.
It should be a lifestyle.
Now, shouldn't the school get involved in this lifestyle?
The school can support what we are doing. I'm a parent of a child in secondary school. I do my job. I teach her sex education. I teach her empathy. I teach her to be good, and I expect her to do so. And I expect her to also communicate. I don't expect her teacher to sit her down and talk about her confidence and her self-esteem. If you want to talk about it and invite some celebrities to shake their
Why are
bum bum
they
to them,
teachers?
they are teachers to teach them English and maths. That's the first thing they're supposed to do. That is what you pay for.
No.
If you check the history of school, this very first school was set up in 1706. It was for children to go there and learn a skill.
Why do we have grief counselors now in schools? At
Now,
least that's
yes,
what.
that is because parents have failed to do their job, and we are trying to help them reform
Joe,
children that have not been well brought up.
Joe,
Parents are failing, and so schools are standing up to do
A
it.
truck ran over students.
A truck ran over children by a parent driving the bus. A parent. And what did the law enforcement officers do? They started shooting. Is that the fault of the school as well?
Yes, wait.
Bullying is a national culture, and it starts from home.
The children went out of school. The truck hit all the kids.
Yes.
Some died, some were injured.
Sadly.
The next day, the school opened and said, you must come in and do exams. Parents were out there and say, these children are sad. Their
You had
friends
that
have
also.
died. They should have brought grief counselors.
Absolutely. But what should the place of the government? What is the place of the government? What did your governor say?
Is it the
What did your
governor's-
president say?
Is it the governor's job to bring grief
Where
counselors?
does it, where do they come? There are some cases that are extreme. The cases that of a child that died recently was extreme, and many others too. It's not only one that's happened.
Yeah.
That case is a national case. It's beyond the school now. That is beyond the school.
But it started from the school.
It started from the school. No, the children were going home, and then they were crushed to death. Unfortunately, now this is trauma. This is too much. Do the schools are they even equipped to know what to do? Did they expect it when they do that SWOT analysis, strengths,
a
weaknesses,
form of
opportunities, and threats? That is not.
It's
That
a
is
form
beyond
of
bullying.
You don't bring them back for the exam the next day. It took the
Yes,
parents.
they should not
bringing
bring
back
them
the
back.
standard.
Parents
They
came
should
out
not
and
bring,
were
and that is standard. That is also a
The
standard.
commissioner came.
That is the standard of the school. What did the commissioner do?
The commissioner came
The-
and they had to shut the school down.
Exactly. So the government stepped in, didn't they? They should.
So should the school have opened? Should
No,
they have done?
the school should not have opened. But you cannot use that one school to benchmark every school.
Oh, okay.
It's a form of bullying. They shouldn't have opened. They shouldn't have opened on that day. It shouldn't have to be parents there saying, my daughter is shaking, her friend died. They shouldn't even have come.
Now, let me come to this point. Now, where should we have this middle ground? The parents are saying the school is not doing enough. The schools are saying the parents are not doing enough. Where and when should we have the middle ground?
There should be collaboration between the teachers and the parents in the best interest of the children that go to that school. That is the way that it should be. That is the way it is in our school. It's not a war between our school and the parents. That is how it should be in theory. And that is how it should be in practice. Sadly, we don't have this case in many, many schools. Again, I keep saying it. If a parent comes to LaPoche school, it's not every parent that is admissible, because we don't want parents that come there to dictate. We take constructive criticism, we take suggestions.
You agree that the
but you
responsibility is
don't,
of the teachers
to do what?
to reform. That's why you don't allow the parents to come in.
You use the word reform. I'm talking about collaboration with a parent. If I have a parent come to the school that wants to dictate, and your child does something and you say there's no consequence for your children, why should you dictate to me how, if you want me to train the child? You are paying me money, so if you are that good at educating, then please keep your child at home. Absolutely.
But she decided to bring in the money.
Yeah.
And you collected the money from her.
Yeah, I collected the
So
money,
you have
but
a responsibility.
I have a responsibility, and I also have school rules and policies, which you must abide by. You must sign. And once you've signed, you've given me local parentis. You've allowed me to be the parent to that child while that child is in my care.
So what happens if that school is not doing, carrying out its own responsibility? You've accepted the money from it, like you said. that I trusted you and I gave you the money. So what if you did not do your own part as a school? Shouldn't I hold you responsible that?
Of course, you
this
should hold
child
the
that is
school
going-
responsible. That school should be held responsible. But I keep saying to parents that you don't go to a school by asking which school do your child goes to. Is it big? Is it this? Politician children are there. Senator children are there. That is how the typical parents ask. Go into the school and do the research. Go into the school and speak to the children in the school. Then you will know what that school is like. If you've spoken to the children in the school, perhaps you will know the extent of evil that exists in that school, and you will not register your school in that child. A lot of people and parents that give feedback to parents, they give it, that feedback, it's experiential. If they have a good time in the school, they will also give you good feedback. If they have negative feedback, they'll give you negative feedback. It doesn't make the school bad. What happens is that you, as a parent, must go there and experience the school with your child. Once you've experienced that school with your child, spoken to the teachers, don't speak to the proprietors. If you come to the post school and you speak to me, you will register. If you speak to this girl, you will register. Go and speak to the teachers. Not if they can even speak English. Go and speak to the children there. See how they're coping. Ask them if they're having a good time. And if they are, sign up your child.
Yeah, back to you. I left off, you were establishing a point.
The point I was trying to say is this. The schools need to take more responsibilities for our children. In the old days, it was PTA meetings. Okay. Sorry, I have to always refer back to America because the boys are old now. Parent-Teacher Association, 6 p.m. you'll come and talk with the school and all the teachers. Today is 2021, the social media age. One school had a Zoom meeting with teachers, staff, parents, and all that. And there was a yelling match going on between some parents and some teachers and some past staff. And that was even in a Zoom meeting in the squares. But don't you think that you guys have responsibility to us, paying you millions and millions of nairas, to be able to communicate in that fashion, the social media fashion, the Zoom, everybody has internet, so that we can know what that parent is saying about this parent and my child and your child.
You see that meeting you're talking about, Auntie Kemi? That particular meeting was not a school meeting. I was actually I was a member of that meeting. It's from a group called the Concerned Parents and Educators, which happened after this sad case happened. Yeah. So it was not a PTA meeting. Right. And I'm not sure which school and which environment that you're exposed to, but that nature of having Zoom meetings and of having meetings online, Google Meet with parents, is the norm these days. It's happening since March 2020 in Nigeria, in many, many schools because of the COVID-19.
Right.
So, just a final question to both of you. And I will start with you. Yeah. Highlighted something about the PTA.
Yeah, Parent Teachers Association.
And also we have this issue of old boys or old girls.
You mean the PTA that many parents don't attend? They're all screaming on social media for PTA, but they don't attend it. They only come for
because
the party.
The schools
they
decide
come
to
for
politicize PTA.
They come for Valentine's Day. Don't they
because
politicize that one? They come
PTA.
For Valentine's Day. They come for Mother's Day, shaking their booty, wearing all sorts of clothes. They come for sports day, uniform dance. They have time for that. They have time for that, but they don't have time for PTAs. So you must be careful how you choose the school you put your child in. I've got to understand.
They seem to forget that the parents also work. I'm at work.
I work too.
Making my millions.
Who asked you to have babies if you don't have time? You don't give me your millions. Don't even have the children if you don't have time for them.
Wait, what time is your PTA? 6 p.m.?
6 p.m.? No.
Weekends?
No.
When?
It's flexible. We know our own parents.
Yeah.
We don't just take Bugweru. So we know our own parents. So we know when our PTA meetings are. There are WhatsApp messages that they get sent. We have opened up policies. Every parent can reach us at any point in time. We don't have to gather before we communicate.
Yeah.
But why is it that we don't have PTAs influencing so many things, and rather we see the politics than dealing with the real issues? Because PTAs, old boys, old girls, we used to covering up the mess in our schools. Don't you think so?
Old girls and old boys, do they apply to this?
I mean, those are alumni. Those are alumni. Those old boys and old girls, those are alumni. They're not really the core of what the PTA is.
No, not about PTA now. I say we also have those groups.
Yes.
And they also wield some level of influence.
If you allow them.
So how do we get them involved in running our schools?
I do it all the time in St. Teresa's. On Founders Day, I go to school in Ibadan, and I do the assembly with them, and it's always so flashy and everything. After that, I don't come back till another year or two. But there are people who live there locally that can do more. And it boils into one thing. Parents must volunteer in schools. I did it with my children. Parents must volunteer in school.
Parents must make sure that volunteer so that they're not raising bullies.
Wait, parents must volunteer.
Parents must do their job.
They're working. We understand they're working until your child starts getting beaten up by one person in the class. I don't know how safe it is in Nigeria, but if my child gets beat up by somebody in the class, okay, I'm volunteering in this classroom today. Where's that boy? It can also cause conflict.
That's bullying.
It can also cause conflict.
That is bullying.
The parent might be bullying another person's child. But at the end of the day,
So you can see now that the bullying starts from home. Thank you.
I really think it starts from
Ladies,
Thank you very much. Bullying
wonderful.
starts from home.
having...
Don't register your child in a school where they bully children.
Okay. I don't know what you think about this. I guess one or two individuals have questions.
Nowadays, you can't blind our eyes to the fact that an average person will see on the street go to the public school. So I can see that our speakers they were speaking for the private school, the big schools. Because Madam said that she can afford to do some things. She can afford to restrict some people in her school. But in public schools, you can't do that. So I want speakers to put the balance that and see where this is.
I mean, at preschool level, it's still parents that put these children there. In fact, if you go to Finland, children don't go to school until they are 7 years old because they believe that it's the responsibility of the parents to raise those children and give them values. So at that tender age, it is still the parents' responsibility. Anything else is the school that buttresses it. Now, when you talk about choice, the reason I mentioned choice, or when she mentioned hair cutting, it's not in every government school. I went to a government school and we did not cut our hair there. So the choice is still there to a significant extent. As a matter of fact, I find it's the private schools, many of them that tell children to cut their hair. So this conversation that we're having doesn't just apply to secondary schools. We are only saying it because of the hot matter that is happening in the country right now. But at the end of the day, it starts from home. It starts with preschoolers. When they say, I don't want to play with you again, don't play with Bola anymore, she's no longer our friend. That is when the bullying starts. It starts from the very, very tender ages, and we must cut it out.
Okay.
whatever is going on at home is going on in the school. It's just that the one that's training your child in the school is a teacher and not the parent. You said balance it out. We're talking about the expensive schools. We're now in an era in Nigeria where we have always thought about the secondary school students in the public schools were the ones that became the real cultists and not the ones in the private school. But this thing is happening in the private school, according to a recent case we all saw in the news. It could be happening. And so no one is exempt. Bullying is bullying. And I think it still starts in the school because the teachers ain't doing their job.
Thank you very much, my debaters. Ronkeposh, permit me to call it Ronke Adeni.
Ronkeposh is fine. Thank you very much.
Okay, Ronkeposh and Kemi Olunloyo.
Thank
It's been
you.
wonderful having both of you here.
Thank you for having me.
Greet your because of COVID. Chop knuckle. And to my wonderful audience, it's been great having you with me.